Okay, welcome back everyone, and some new faces, which is great. Obviously, you've been spreading the word and encouraging more people to come in, which is brilliant. Very pleased to introduce Stuart Block from Fluor. Please, Stuart.
Okay. Morning, everybody. So, as I say, I'm Stuart Block. I'm the Global AWP functional lead for all of Fluor throughout the whole world. Nice fancy title, just trying to bring common sense to all our projects. And that's what we're going to go through today. So, any questions for the panel session? Got the QR code if you haven't filled it in already. Social media for Twitter. Obviously, as Ian said earlier, get it out there. So, we're going to start off quite simply. What is AWP? So, there is other systems called Last Planner you've probably heard of. They do work alongside each other, even though the teams don't want to collaborate too much. But there is elements in both that work together. So it's just easy if I stand this side. So obviously, advanced work packaging is from the start of the project, all about interactive planning, obviously advanced, thinking about it, breaking it down into work packages, whether they be CWPs, EWPs, PWPs, whatever acronyms you really want, and there's a lot out there. And that's all in the kind of the home office before it goes into the field. So as Jeff said, our crews want to get more productive, so we have to feed them the information. And that's where we get through workplace planning with IWPs. Also, if we've got the metadata up front, it goes into commissioning and startup a lot easier. So the transition over, as Martin said, the more information we have up front, the better we can go into system completions, commissioning. Used to be 65% through bulk construction. That was the switch over. If you get the data right, you can actually do it at 1%. You start thinking of turnover at 1% through bulk construction. You don't change the momentum of bulk construction. You just have that idea of where you're going. Last Planner, slightly different. It all revolves around a master schedule. And for us that have been in scheduling for years, we get a lot of requirements of too much detail in the schedule. It's not there to manage, it's there to just report data. And that's why they call planners mostly now historians. They're always reporting the history, not where the project's going, the journey. That's a little yeah. I can actually say that after 25 years as a planner. So. But that's where things are going. We want to break that cycle. We want to plan in advance of where the journey's going, where the projects are going, not where we've been. So Last Planner comes from the master schedule, set milestones, quick phase scheduling, which almost aligns with our CWPs, EWPs. Look ahead planning is when we get into the field, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it at a granular level. Then get down to the real detail, which is almost IWPs for the weekly work plans. What's happening each week. Then start looking into the learning, plan percentage complete, what happened, what didn't happen, why didn't happen. Continual improvement process. So starting with key aspects that my daughter came up with, so I can attribute her to these slides. AWP changed the mindset of how projects are actually managed and delivered. It's thinking ahead, where it's not just engineering, it's not just procurement, it's the project. Where is that project going? So get out of the mindset of you work for engineering, you work for the project. Focus the team on what benefits the project. We don't care how one team goes on, it's a team event. It wants to improve communication interface at all levels of projects. So the project director is not always right. The client is not always right. Whatever benefits the project benefits the client. So if the project's going well, the client's happy. We're saving money, we're being more efficient. And it will ensure a lean technique is applied to all aspects of the project. So real simple things, but it's all going in direction of what benefits that project, which is what the advanced work planning is, or workplace planning is. So another aspect with that mindset thing, focus on what's good for that project. So anybody in the project can speak up. What's not working, how can we make it better? So instead of saying what isn't working, what is working? So promote the benefits. Thinking of the end in mind, all driving that same direction. It's not just the end of engineering. How can I feed construction better? How can I feed commissioning better? What does the client really want for operations? Past the end of our journey. A lot of times now at Fluor we get feeds, but we're thinking of what's the turnover, what's maintenance. We start to improve that interface more, which actually benefits because we actually get the next phase. We're not just setting our sights at the end of feed. It's actually going even further. We're reducing the amount of waste. Think where construction's going, even in feed, so we don't have to start again. Even if it goes to somebody else, our competitors. The project's still going in that right direction. And through that, we're increasing a lot of predictability for our schedules because we're not going to the nth degree. We're not having 200-page schedules. We have something that's manageable and readable and follow. We optimise our performance. We reduce that amount of waste. Think about what we need before we get there so that we can standardise it and make things simple. I think one of our projects, we had 700,000 Excel spreadsheets. Why? Well, it was 10 years or 12 years, but they count how many spreadsheets there were on a project. We've now simplified that into a data warehouse. Don't repeat the same data twice. Remove the waste, optimise performance. If you've got a supplier form, use a standard one. Get people to review it before it's issued. And have an aligned organisation. We're now all working globally, bringing experts in from everywhere, work from home or work from home from office from home. And if we're all aligned, we're all going in that same direction, we know what people are doing. We can actually benefit from different time zones. Because we can pass that information over. Say to the US, let them work with it the rest of the night. When it comes in, the work's done. So we always think of the end in mind, and it always says kind of construction's the end. It could be demolishment, could be wherever it goes. And what's that? The platforms that Shell just decommissioned. Classic example. When they were building it, weren't even for the end for decommissioning. So we're now getting to the remit of getting BIM and everything else. Let's go right to the end, which might be demolition, it might be upgrades. But we need to start thinking about that early on in projects. So that end in mind, how can we make things simpler? And obviously, just for a simple project going to system completions, what have we got to hand over? How are we going to systemize this? To work backwards into engineering, design, so we don't repeat that data twice. We know what we need, and there's a journey to get there. Some of our projects we're now starting to see where we're getting lean people on board as project directors. They think the end in mind, but they don't know it's a journey to get there. So it's a hard thing to think about. Got to know where you're going. We're all experts in AWP because we plan our holidays, we plan dinner. You put 5 people together, you've got 5 different opinions. That's the collaboration part. Work together to get there. So a quick analogy and lineup of workplace planning with lean and progress measurement from a construction project. So in workplace, in AWP, we have a CWP release handover. So that's the handover from home office to construction. We want to make sure that we're not feeding the site information they don't need in the wrong sequence. So at Fluor, we call that the CWP release. Lean doesn't have that, they just rely on the schedule. But then when we go through our IWPs with our contractors, because obviously we're construction management, we don't build the job, we get them to break down the CWP into their work packages. And that's the same thing in Lean, called the pool planning workshops, just breaking it down to more detail. We then go through release plans once the ideas thing, they've started to find there's a few issues, and it's just a continuation of the pool planning workshops. Bit I forgot was progress reporting. We have to do an estimate on our jobs at the start. All clients want a price of what it's going to cost. Now, when the project develops, go through its journey, that price is changing. They don't always want to pay for a full estimating team to re-estimate. So by having the CWP release, we're getting new quantities, real quantities that they're going to install. So we're not going to get our contractors to overcharge us. We know what that is before they've installed it. Then, as the contractor develops these IWPs, he's going to find issues. we call that constraint management, because we want to resolve those problems before we go to the shop floor, to the workers. Lean calls that a follow-up lean workshop with their constraint management. So you can see very similar lines. Then we come down into workplace planning, start looking at 4, 6 week, 12-week ahead, then moving into 3-week look aheads. Then we get into almost the daily work plans, a 2-week look ahead of what's happening on site. Because we want our crews to know what they're doing for 2 weeks. They don't care about 6 weeks. It's too far ahead. They want to know what they're doing the next 2 weeks. Then we go into the daily work plans. When they start executing, with their foreman, we have a daily huddle, 10 minutes. What have you done today? What are you doing tomorrow? Has that gone right? Is there delays? But that time we're right at the very low level of detail. 1 or 2 tasks. That's all we're asking. Quick chat, where are we going? We can update progress and we can actually do continual improvement. What was good, what was bad? That can feed back into this loop quite easily. So we need to know that. Is there any problems? Because problems kill us and we don't want rework. And then we come in and close out what went right, what didn't go right, what was good. And that's also the handover now into quality and commissioning. We've installed whatever we've installed. Have you done your checks on it? How far are we ready for, say, hydro testing or electrical loop checks? Are we ready? Are we not? Is there more tasks to happen? So that's really the kicker driving into then commissioning from that point onwards. Are we ready? So our workplace planning, as I said, CWP release, nice handover, find so many engineering issues that engineers don't want to listen about, don't want to know about. So we find that so we can resolve them before it goes to the field. We also find if there's any design changes coming on, because they're the bits that kill us in the field. Get a design change when you're installing, you either stop work, leave it unsafe, or you finish it and then come back to a rip and tear. Both options very costly. If you thought about it early on in the release, you can actually get your contractor to work away from that problem. So the CWP is generally about 12 weeks of work, and IWP is 1 to 2. So you can put that problem at the end and have engineering fix that before the contractors get there. So you're not changing their work schedule. You might make them slightly unproductive, but you're not rip and tearing. And then obviously work through building the packages. A package is like an IKEA manual. Real idiot's guide to building something. Anybody can build IKEA furniture. You get the tools, you get the list, you get the sequences. There's very few people that can't do an IKEA package these days. You haven't got to employ an expert to do it. Like, change it round, go back years ago, baking a cake, you follow the instructions, you follow the recipe, you get the ingredients, same thing. We do it in our lives all the time. We're just putting that cake and recipe down to the construction workers, or furniture, or Lego. So, but actually that's gone even further. That's how they do manufacturing of cars now. And even hobby kits. Airfix done this as well. Part A goes on page 1. So then as we go through, obviously, we're getting ready to execute in the field. So once we've finalised the IWP, we then know what materials we need. We can give time for the warehouse to get things ready to be collected or delivered to the field. On some of our jobs, it's actually then ordered at that point, if it's next day delivery. But it just allows a bit of time in case there's a problem. Whilst we're committing, getting that short range plan up and running, getting everybody 100% aligned, what has to be done when. Execute and then analyse and close back. Did you do it? Was there a problem? Because we always want to know what that feedback is. Really, you could say the analyse and closing is a punch list. Don't wait for commissioning, do a punch list when you finish the work. Put it into a next IWP or one in a week or two's time. So back to our release. So we call it the first line of defence because technically when we engineer projects, we want to know all of that information before we hand it over. What is the scope, what we're releasing? It could be one line, it could be complicated, it could be 10 foundations. Have we got all the drawings? Is there any holes? Hole kills us. change kills us. Is there actually all the engineering metadata available for our turnover systems or other systems or our tools? Have we got any supplier drawings and data? If we're installing a pump, is there a special way of installing it? If we haven't got that and we install it wrong, it's going to have to come out, get remade, put back in. Even down to the point of thinking, bringing construction in, can we actually install that on site? Is what engineering thinks construction can actually do that? An example of that is we had a 42-inch water line in plastic. Design changed from 190-degree to 245s, sent it through, got all the materials, 14 weeks to get on site. Site then report back, we ain't got the tooling for it. Only the manufacturer can weld it. So I had to go all the way back to Germany, fit in the manufacturing schedule, and then come back. So it's a 44-week delay. Yeah, it happens. But if engineering had told us earlier in the scope, it would have, we could have said right back at the start, we can't do this. So that's the involvement of getting construction people involved in the release. They know what they're getting. Material status, same thing. And then when we go through development, we're looking at constraint-free, problem-free IWPs. What will the crew need to build this? So they don't have to run back to an office. They don't have to leave site and be unsafe. And we've identified drawings, materials, equipment, tools, the trade, actual workers, scaffolding, QA/QC, safety. We say it could just be like the scaffolding, but we actually go down to, have you got the right PPE for this? Is there any specialist chemicals you're handling? Have you been trained in the tools? It's okay putting it down, but if your workers aren't competent, we don't want to put them at risk. Have you got the permit to be there? All that needs to be identified before we actually start work. And that's where we have our system and look at that. But that could be a simple Excel spreadsheet, come back to Excel. But usually now we have better systems about smart construction, Innate, and others who are about there. So it's becoming more digitised. An example over the far side, where we start using 3D models, we get visualisation. We tie to our master data sources, our document control, our material lists. Whilst your planner is looking at materials, if a material isn't there, don't just say it's not there, raise it as a concern. You might be able to change how it's being shipped. Worst case is you're going to get it air freighted somewhere or expedite delivery. Small extra cost, but don't slow the project down. So constraint management, and this is where we really tie up a lot of owners and project managers and project directors with this. They don't want to know about problems. We want to see the problems. We don't care how big or how small they might be. It's going to stop somebody if they've got a problem. It could be down to inexperience. But until it's raised, it's not going to get answered. So we track everything. So it's logged. And some of the projects we've had over 1 million problems. Most of them been about materials, of course, because nobody reports their own. But they're now turning the cycle on that to go, I don't understand this. What does it mean? Being more specific on it, it can get cleared quickly. It's the ones that don't get raised that cause the problems. And if they are a problem and nobody can fix it, we can escalate it. We can find an expert for that. So, but we only know if it's actually being raised. And that's from the home office all the way through to the field. Moving to short range planning. So again, IWPs, we're looking at 30, 60, 90-day look aheads. Could be longer, could be shorter, depends on the projects. But it's a look ahead of what's happening. Most projects, smaller ones, will use P6 for this. Other projects don't want to overload it with that amount of data. Then it starts driving into a 4-week look ahead, the weekly plan, the plan of the day, or what the crew tasks actually are. But it helps mitigate any other problems there might be. But by doing this, you then bring in more collaboration with your workers. So if you've got to put a piece of pipe up, you know, you're going to have probably electrical cable and cable tray next to it. So talk together and put one set of scaffolding up. Don't put two. So it saves effort, saves work. Going into short-range planning, technically, it will work finish to start after each other. Traditional way, I will start that after the next one. But what we're saying is, can we optimise that? Can we make it a lot better? Actually, it did work, the animation. So we start thinking about who's doing what within the crews. So you've now gone from 4 weeks long to potentially 2 weeks. So you've now half that amount of work. Just being a bit more optimised, a bit more planning up front. And it helps synchronise the crews, what they're doing. Because we don't want people standing around. So before, you might have had the form crew sitting there on Monday and Tuesday. The following week, come back on another Monday, Tuesday. What are they doing the rest of the week? Where now, we're actually keeping them busy. They want to be busy, they don't want to stand around. If they stand around, something else will happen. Their mind won't be on the job. So that becomes unsafe. Typical reasons for not using AWP. Yeah, we're seeing this thing for, no, we're too busy. But actually, you don't follow the current procedures, the projects are too small, it's too expensive to implement, processes are too complex. It's actually the complete opposite to all of them. All procedures there to make your company work better. Don't change them, follow them. If they are slightly out of date, you can change them. They're not cast in stone. Think about, does it benefit the business? Does it benefit our projects? No project is too small, because we've said you can do it on a cake. You can plan your cake out. You can plan a bit of furniture out. So it's very small projects. Is it expensive to implement? As long as you plan what you're doing, it's not expensive at all. You just know what you're doing. If you don't plan, you wasted the effort. So it then becomes too expensive. And the process is too complex. Writing down what you're going to do for the next week, 2 weeks, isn't hard. We do it in our lives every day. We've got calendars for that. Same principle, just putting it onto a bigger scale with more projects or bigger projects. Got a couple of case studies. We'll do it for time. We've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go. Right. So, case one, this was a refinery in the UK. We've done civils works. So we've done our release, we've done our workplace planning with our contractors, which was Murphy's. They went through this, made sure it all fit for purpose. They handed over their work, scoping, development. I'll fly through this pretty quickly. Oh, that didn't come up. But what that's shown was that the blue line across the top, the dotted line, was our estimate. But actually, when we started releasing this from engineering, our quantities went up. So we could foresee the quantities going up. So we could demonstrate what they were. The blue line, solid blue line, was what we were going to release. Of course, engineering in the yellow, or orange, sorry, started slipping, as they do. They found problems, it slipped. But then when we get down to the bottom, the green line was what the contractor had packaged. But you can see he's actually got, I can't see it. He actually got extra work fronts that he could work on. The grey line was what he had released to the field, so they knew what they were working on. And the yellow line was actually what they should have installed. So you can see they were ahead of the installation curve. But it shows with some data and some organisation, you can get good metrics out very quickly of how the project's really going. European project case study 2. We had half the team what to use last planner, half what to use workplace planning. So they were working in 2 different directions. So we brought them back to work together, back to that map again. So we showed them it was aligned, they could work together, the same process. End result was identical. We just worked together so you're not working 2 different systems. We then come up with, we weren't designing this project, we were in construction management. So 12 weeks ahead, we were planning what was going on. So we knew what the agenda of our 12-week look ahead was going to be. Then looking at 6 weeks, slightly different audience, and then the 2 weeks on site. We then built an automated dashboard that actually took all the data from everybody, what was planned, what they were planning themselves, how many constraints there were. And this was then used not having to print anything out or write anything, just in the meeting to go through the actions of what should be done by the various parties. So that covered the 6 and the 12 week. And then from the contractor building the IWPs, we could get the simple download into a 2-week look ahead that was given to the crews on site. So this was put onto the board on every floor of this building. So the crews had their daily meetings around there, 10 minutes. They knew what was going on, they knew what was coming the next day. But we also got them to put on a map. Within certain buildings, you have high bay, you have low bay in a room. Like here, it would be all the HVAC, all the steelwork above the ceiling, then low bay was below. But by them actually marking on where they were going to be, they were coordinating. So that picture told the crews where they should be, where somebody else is going to be, they're not allowed to be. So it actually stopped out of sequence work. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stuart.